Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to the Midday News. The news is live on Joy 99.7 FM here in Accra and Kumasi. We're on Love 99.5 FM in number of affiliates across Ghana's 16 regions. We are on Radio Max in Takrady, KTU Radio in Koforidua. We are on Sun City Radio in Keta and ATL FM in Cape Coast. We are live on Twitter Spaces. We are on Facebook and my Joy Online interactive app. The Midday News is sponsored by Petrosol, your clean fuel in full quantity. Petrosol is always a delightful experience. Also brought to you by Duraplus Ghana Limited, producers of quality PVC pipes and water tank. Where Duraplus goes, water flows. This afternoon, private citizen dragged Speaker of Parliament to the High Court, asking that the anti-gay bill be put on hold, as he alleges it was not accompanied by a fiscal impact analysis when it was laid in the House. We have all the details right here, and also hear from one of the sponsors of the bill. Also, the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, says it is awaiting approval of final liquidation order to clear all outstanding investment of customers of Gold Coast Fund Management amidst renewed pressure from customers.
The liquidation order is being obtained by the official liquidator, and that can be granted through the courts as per the relevant law.
We have details as customers accuse the SEC of deliberately delaying the process. Also, the National Cathedral Secretariat has described as distortion of facts allegation of identity theft by Northton MP.
But it's really a fundamental lack of basic knowledge of how these things work. All the bombshells are just rubbish.
We have details of that also in sports.
Cameroon boasts of the reigning NBA MVP. When is Ghana next in line? Prediction in 20 minutes.
And as Felix Kwachiofosu faces off with a professor of physics at the University of Ghana in a battle many have described as too close to call, we shine the light on that constituency.
So if a candidate comes that close in an election, it only makes sense that you repeat that candidate.
And then much later, we get to explore artificial intelligence generated music, revolutionary, forbidden, or illegal minefield. That and more here on the Midday News. I am Emefa Apawu. This is your home of independent, fearless, and credible journalism. Please stay on for details. Many thanks for choosing us. Let's dig in now. And a private citizen, Paul Boama Sifa, has dragged the Speaker of Parliament and the Attorney General to the High Court. He's alleging that the two have breached portions of Ghana's constitution regarding how the legislative body handled the Human Rights and Family Values Bill 2021. He says despite the law having financial implications for the Consolidated Fund, it was not handed to Parliament with a fiscal impact analysis document. Parliament's Constitutional Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Committee has already urged the House to pass the bill into law, but it appears this may suffer some setback. Legal Affairs correspondent Joseph Akable joins me in studio with details of this. Joseph, so what more do we know about the individual behind this action and what his issue with the Speaker of Parliament is?
He describes himself as a farmer and a private citizen based in the Ashanti region. He says the Speaker of Parliament has the mandate to ensure that all legislative processes are undertaken in accordance with law. He points out that the Public Financial Management Act requires that any bill to be laid in Parliament should be accompanied by a fiscal impact analysis. He claims the Human Rights and Family Values Bill does not have this attached to it.
Okay. Well, he makes references to the AG's opinion on this matter too.
Yes, the AG's memo to Parliament on this same bill actually raised this particular issue, and he says it confirms the fact that this bill did not have the financial impact analysis and that the AG raised the matter and should have stopped the committee from proceeding because of the lack of this particular essential requirement.
Now, let's walk through the reliefs that he's seeking from the court.
Substantively, he wants the court to restrain the Speaker, his deputies, and other individuals from proceeding with any process regarding the bill until this is complied with.
Okay. But Joseph, the committee that handled this bill, that's the Legal and Constitutional Affairs Committee, addressed this concern in its final report to Parliament. Is that not the case?
Yes, the committee in its report noted that the Attorney General had raised the issue and that portions of the bill imposes a charge on the Consolidated Fund. It, however, noted that Through the amendments it was proposing, this will be taken care of. Some of the clauses in issue, for instance, Clause 3, it placed responsibility on citizens, the executive, among others, to promote values in the bill. Again, payment for medical assistance or therapy under Clause 19, Subclause 6 also is another issue that was cited as having financial implications as well.
Well, we're hoping to hear from one of the sponsors of the bill, but I'm sure since you saw the suit, you've been finding out from some of the proponents of this particular bill. What indication do you get?
I mean, they are surprised by this particular legal action. They hold the view that it's also part of efforts geared at ensuring that this bill is not passed. They do not think that there's any legitimate consent to merit a legal action, and they are prepared to ensure that this particular process goes through.
Thank you very much, Joseph Akable. Subsequently, we'll get to hear more on this story. It looks like it will be a long drawn battle ahead. There's more also on the suit on myjoyonline.com. I'll turn attention to some other stories now. And the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, says it is awaiting approval of final liquidation order to clear all outstanding investment of customers of Gold Coast Fund Management. Well, this is in response to renewed pressure from customers demanding immediate payment of their locked up funds. Customers have been picketing the SEC in the past 3 days, calling on the receiver of the defunct Gold Coast Fund Management to pay their locked up funds. Receiving a petition from the group, Head of Communications and External Affairs, Dr. Godwin Ansa, says the SEC is committed to paying these customers.
It's also important to state that SEC is not party to any of the applications in the court. The government gave two conditions for which the full bailout would be implemented. One, the liquidation order is being obtained by the official liquidator, and that can be granted through the courts as per the relevant law, and also the validation of claims. We have actually finished with the validation of claims, and the said monies have been paid out even to Black Shield customers under the partial bailout program which the government awarded on humanitarian grounds. So far we have about 44 out of 46 liquidation orders which have been obtained. We only have 2 outstanding, and we are very committed to the process, and we are sure that these orders will be obtained so that the needful can be done.
But, well, customers say the Commission is deliberately delaying the payment process.
I stand here today to let the President and the nation at large know that we haven't received our monies. Bailout package is distinct from a liquidation order. A bailout package is a taxpayers' money approved by Parliament to pay us. And you can use a liquidation order route which can take about 2 decades, as suggested by Securities and Exchange Commission themselves, as to be a condition to the bailout package. Therefore, with all due respect, for the sake of our people out there, we have no further strength to battle with the government. We are pleading with them in the name of God, as a listening father, wherever the 5.5 billion approved by Parliament is, should be, as a matter of urgency, released and disbursed for the betterment of these dying customers of Gold Coast Fund Management and other fund management customers.
Well, let me bring in Dr. Godwin Ansa, Head of Communications and External Affairs of the Securities and Exchange Commission. Thank you so much for joining us. Well, we've been hearing from the customers, but I've heard you earlier say that commitment to pay is there, but the concern for them is when exactly will that happen? In fact, they accuse the SEC of deliberately delaying that payment process.
Thank you so much for your question. I always like to start by underscoring the mandate of the SEC, which is really to regulate and promote the growth and development of an efficient, fair and transparent securities market in which investors and the integrity of the market are protected. So you can see that core of our mandate is ensuring that investors are truly protected. Now, in terms of the allegations that have been made by representatives of the aggrieved customers regarding the fact that SEC seems to be delaying the process, our submission is that this, of course, whilst we empathize, is emphatically untrue. Now, as you recall, when SEC revoked the license of the affected customers, what happened was that in line with the relevant law, it notified the registrar of companies to petition the court for liquidation orders for the affected firms so that assets could be liquidated and used to compensate the affected customers. As we speak, SEC is no longer in the process. Our process, or our part in the process, ended with a liquidation order, but we've gone beyond that. So it's important for us to set the record straight that currently what is happening is that the official liquidator, being the registrar of companies, is in court seeking liquidation orders from which the the company can actually then be, assets the company can be liquidated and the customers made whole. Now, we also have the assertion that 5.5 billion cedis had been released by, the government, which had not been made available to the customers. Our response is that, yes, indeed, government had indeed approved 5.5 billion in 2021. However, we know that there's a difference between budgeted amounts and disbursed amounts. There's a separate agent that manages the payment of funds. SEC has never held onto the funds. SEC has never received funds from the government. And this agent is currently the one undertaking the payments. The update we have from the agent as far as this 5.5 billion is concerned is that government has disbursed so far 4.6 billion out of these funds, which has been allocated as following. First and foremost, 3.1 billion has been allocated to amalgamated fund tier 1 payments, and 1.4 billion has been allocated to the AM fund tier 2 payments. So this is how the 4.6 billion out of the 5.5 billion has been utilized. It's also important for us to state emphatically that members of Black Shield or affected investors of Black Shield also enjoyed some of these payments, because you would recall that the SEC also engaged the government regarding, a partial bailout based on humanitarian grounds. So based on that, the government agreed to pay up to 50,000 cedis per investor for affected investors who had validated claims but whose liquidation orders had not yet been obtained.
Okay,
So
let me get some quick clarity, Dr. Godwin Ansah, because of lack of time. Well, the customers suggest that you could go ahead, but pardon me, maybe I may be ignorant on that, but they're saying that you could go ahead with the validation and payment without having to go through the long process of acquiring validation from the court. Is that really an option?
So let me put this in the right context. In terms of going ahead, in fact, we have gone ahead based on an agreement with the government to initiate a partial bailout, out of which 1.3 billion was used to pay customers of Black Shield. This 1.3 billion out of the disbursed amount covered over 73,000 claims, and this amounted to about 82% of the total claims of the company or held against the company. Out of this amount, 61,000 claims were fully covered. So under the partial bailout, it's important to know that indeed the SEC had gone ahead in agreement with the relevant agencies, of course, and with agreement of government to pay customers of Black Shield and other customers under the partial bailout. But it's important for us to state that the conditions given for the full bailout to take place was not set by the SEC. It is the government that provided the funds, and the government set the conditions for which the funds will be dispersed. Now,
okay. Well, Dr. Ansah, I beg your pardon. We'll have to leave it here for now. Subsequently, we'll have more of the discussion, and that's the head of communications and external affairs for the Securities and Exchange Commission. Now, the National Cathedral of Ghana Secretariat has refuted allegations by North Tongue MP Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa that it is engaged in identity theft. The North Tongue MP had alleged in his National Cathedral Scandals America edition that the Secretariat was guilty of identity theft in the registration of the National Cathedral Foundation in the USA. The foundation, he alleges, has been registered in the name of one Jose Salgado, who is deceased. However, reacting to Okudzeto-Ablakwa's findings, the Secretariat say they were merely a distortion of facts. My colleague James Aveji joins me in studio with more on this. James, so let's talk about the Cathedral's National Cathedral's Secretariat statement describing Mr. Okudzeto-Ablakwa's facts as a distortion.
Well, Emefa, the statement says, quote, in arriving at the so-called identity theft, the MP distorts the information on the registration document by taking the taxpayer ID number 86-385-9197 labeled Appendix 1 and disingenuously changes it to the Social Security number 863-85-9197 belonging to a deceased named Jose Salgado, labeled Appendix 2. He then proceeds to accuse the National Cathedral of using the quote-unquote stolen identity of the deceased to register. Now it continues that the For the record, the taxpayer ID number is issued for corporations and is separated by 1 dash, i.e. 86-385-9197. And the taxpayer ID number is derived from employment identification number, which is applied for as the first step in application for a tax-exempt status labeled in Appendix 3. So essentially what the National Cathedral Secretariat is saying is that although the two numbers are the same, they do not mean the same thing, meaning the taxpayer ID number 86-385-9197 is not the same as the social security number 863-85-9197. And so they take the position that this is not a distortion. It is actually a deliberate attempt by the MP, as it states that the National Cathedral project has been implemented with integrity and with no criminality.
First, there are no bombshells. In fact, all this that are claimed to be bombshells is reflective of almost a deep lack of understanding and knowledge of the issues. And so, in fact, for me, it's almost like an embarrassment as a Ghanaian to read some of this so-called bombshells that are being made on the issues in the USA about the registration. But, I mean, it's almost a sense of relief. But the most problematic issue, really, is that we expect a certain level of cognitive legitimacy. When people speak about issues, they would have some expertise, they would have some knowledge on the issues. What are called bombshells really, I want to be very, very circumspect in my choice of words. But it's really a fundamental lack of basic knowledge of how these things work. Look, we've always said we are open to parliamentary oversight of state resources in the project, but insisting that this oversight cannot be done on social media. I mean, it's almost an affront to the democratic process that we've opted to follow as a country. So that's really the import of the message, that all the bombshells are just rubbish.
That's the Executive Director of the National Cathedral Secretariat, Dr. Paul Opoku Mensah. Time for the election headquarters. And the race to May 13 primaries for the NDC is still on, and the contest in the Abra Asebu Kwamankese constituency is heating up as a professor of physics at the University of Ghana, Professor Nana Ama Brown Kluche, takes on spokesperson for former President Mahama Felix Kwakye Ofosu in a context many have described as too close to call. In their last contest in 2019, Felix Ofosu Kwakye beat the professor in the primaries but lost by 176 votes to the NPP candidate in the national elections. Well, let's focus on them. Richard Kojonyako has more.
The Abra Asebu Kwamankese constituency has fallen to the National Democratic Congress more than it has to the New Patriotic Party. Since 1992, the NDC has grabbed 5 out of the 8 contests that have been done. But the presence of the spokesperson for former President John Dramani Mahama has attracted huge interest.
I made the first attempt and I came quite close. I lost by a measly 176 votes, which is mighty close. So if a candidate comes that close in an election, it only makes sense that you repeat that candidate.
Felix Kwakye Ofosu speaks of why he is the best bet for the constituents. In 2019, he burst onto the scene and beat Professor Nana Ama Brown Kluche in a fiercely contested battle.
I have contested him before, but the dynamics this year tilts in my favor. I know I'll win by a huge margin.
Professor Nana Ama Brown Kluche lost narrowly in the primaries in 2019 to Felix Kwakye Ofosu. She says she's lived in the constituency, knows the needs of the constituent better than the contender, and can better represent the people.
Now let's head to the Setre Afram Plains constituency, where the battle is between uncle and nephew. Nana Yaojima has more.
Alex Adomaku-Mensah has been the NDC MP for 3 consecutive terms. Some constituents say his performance has not been impressive. The MP, who would not grant a recorded interview, however, disagrees. He told Love News his office has embarked on a series of developmental projects, though he admits the need for more. The incumbent MP's nephew, Dr. Kwabena Ford Jr., is a strong contender for the seat.
It's been 12 years of hunger since we created the constituency, 12 years of hardship, 12 years of visionless leadership, and it's time for one of their own to lead them. Senator Afram, please, we need an MP who can mobilize resources and make things move. We don't need an MP who's going to sit in Parliament and wait for the salary to come in.
Hajia Afra Nasira is the only female candidate in the race. Her team believes it's time for the NDC to consider a better alternative. Dauda Ishak speaks for the candidate.
It's not the issue of money. It's not the issue of money at all. I mean, it doesn't even borders on gender. It borders on competence. I believe that all the other candidates, she's more competent in terms of grassroots mobilization.
So that's the situation in Setre, Afram Plains constituency, and you ought to trust your election headquarters to bring you all the updates, all the action when it comes to the May 13 primaries of the NDC. We'll stay a while longer in the Ashanti region, this time out of the election headquarters, and trading activities have spilled over to the premises of the Edriso District Magistrate Court in the Ashanti region, forcing proceedings to be limited to only family tribunal cases on Thursday market days. Love FM's Erasto Sasaridonko has more.
This building was built as a district magistrate court in 1950. Over 3 years ago, it used to still house the Edriso District Magistrate Court. But this place is now turned into a marketplace. And so the court was forced to vacate this premises and move to the other end. The court is now sharing a place with squatters, market women, selling all manner of different things.
On a market day like today, the court has to suspend major cases and limit proceedings to family tribunal suits that are heard in chambers. Nana Sechi is party to a case in court today. He speaks of the effects of the noise on proceedings in court.
It's bad because you can't even, at times you can't concentrate while speaking. The noise outside keeps interrupting and then you can't give your point.
That's how we take a quick break here on the Midday News live on Joy 99.7 FM in Accra and Kumasi. We're on Love 99.5 FM. We're on a number of affiliates across Ghana's 16 regions. We're on Twitter Spaces. We're on Facebook and myjoyonline.com. The Midday News is sponsored by Petrosol, your clean fuel in full quantity. Petrosol is always a delightful experience, and also brought to you by Duraplus Ghana Limited, producers of quality PVC pipes and water tank. Where Duraplus goes, water flows. Private Citizen Drug Speaker of Parliament to the High Court asking that the anti-gay bill be put on hold, as he alleges it was not accompanied by a fiscal impact analysis when it was laid in the House. We've been bringing you details of that. When we return, we come with sports, and also with here we explore artificial intelligence generated music, revolutionary, forbidden, or illegal minefield.
Yeah, you are my world. Got these girls on my neck, got these girls on my check.
It can never become what they aspire to. Born in a cell with no.
Imagine say water wake up at dawn. You know both. You know chop. Where it vanish for your area for 2 weeks. You not get one drop safe inside your tank.
Hey.
Hajia, our life was in dangerous. Only our neighbor get water with water tank.
Water tank?
Yes, water tank. Mamma mia, that water tank get meter for checking water level. That water tank be fine past Kumasi Selenium. That water tank be tough like Ghana Army. That water tank, they carry water pepe. So say some no go left inside the supply tank. What a tank! That's my boss, Mr. Poncho go talk.
Beautiful, durable, with water level indicator and accurate volume of water. Water tank. What a tank! By Duraplast.
Thanks for choosing us. Let's do sports. Michael Queen is here.
Emefa. 2 days ago, Joel Embiid was crowned the National Basketball Association's Most Valuable Player (MVP) for this season, making him only the second African after Hakeem Olajuwon to claim the prestigious award. He did that in 1993-1994 season. Only 3 Ghanaians have played in the NBA, and out of those 3, one isn't fully Ghanaian, British-born Pops Mensah Bonsu. And out of that remaining 2, only one played at least a full season after being selected at the annual NBA draft. So when does Ghana get her real NBA superstar? That's a question I asked NBA Africa's head of basketball operations.
You just have to have the political will and the organization to really be able to push Ghanaian basketball, take it to another level. Before you get to that point, you need to have a strong grassroots program, right, where at the foundation, young girls and boys learn to play the game the right way. And I'm even going down further. You need to start with infrastructure. Once you have the infrastructure, then you have coaches development. So once your coaches are some of the best in Africa and the world, they'll be able to instill the right foundation to the youth.
Frank Traore, NBA Africa's head of basketball operations. That'll be all for sports, but there's more on this dial from 1:15 Game Plan, antics and sports.
Can't wait for Game Plan, and Gary L. Smith and the team are already in the studio. Can't wait for that. But let me take you to the UK briefly and back to Accra. And it's all set for the coronation of King Charles III in the UK. And guess what? Otumfuo Osei II is joining royalty from across the world for that coronation. Nana Boachi Yadom has more in this report.
Royalty from around the world is expected to be in attendance, including the Asantehene Otumfuo Osei II and his wife, Lady Julia. Teacher Safo Kantanka, a cultural historian at the Menchia Palace, highlights the relationship between the Asante Kingdom and the United Kingdom.
But the relationship has been something of bitter and sweet. Bitter in the days when the Ashantis were fighting seriously against the British. It is believed that they have fought the British for well over 100 years. The aim of the war was for the British to capture the golden stool, which they were unable to capture.
According to teacher Kantanka, the relationship between both kingdoms improved after several decades of war.
Respect given to the Ashantis, it's somehow due to the very tough time they gave the British.
Well, a Blessed Suga of our foreign desk shares details of the coronation tomorrow.
Charles was born in Buckingham Palace during the reign of his maternal grandfather, King George VI, and was 3 years old when his mother, Elizabeth II, acceded to the throne in 1952, making him the heir apparent. He was made Prince of Wales in 1958, and his investiture was held in 1969. After earning a Bachelor of Arts degree from the University of Cambridge, Charles served in the Royal Air Force and Navy for 5 years, from 1971 to 1976. In 1981, he married Lady Diana Spencer, with whom he has 2 sons, William, Prince of Wales, and Prince Harry, Duke of Sussex. In 2005, Charles married his long-term partner, Camilla Parker Bowles, after Diana died as a result of injuries sustained in a car crash in 1997. As heir apparent, Charles undertook official duties and engagements on behalf of his mother. He founded the Prince's Trust in 1976, sponsors the Prince's Charities, and is patron, president, or a member of over 800 other charities and organizations. He has advocated for the conservation of historic buildings and the importance of architecture in society.
And that's King Charles, and he'll be coronated tomorrow. We have our eyes on that. Now, on Showbiz, we put a spotlight on artificial intelligence-generated music.
They can never become what they aspire to. Born in a cell with no one who can inspire you.
Your highs are never as high as those that lie to you.
Pretending that they live in the sky, lying behind your roof.
That definitely sounds like Jay-Z. It's called Savages by the French outfit Alter A. But of course, it is not Jay-Z. It's an AI model of his voice. It has more than 200,000 plays on YouTube.
All I know is you could have had the world.
More recently, Heart on My Sleeve, an impressive AI-created Drake and The Weeknd collaboration, is another example of how technology can be used to create another version of what is not so real but sounds real. While some people find it very compelling, others are not pleased. Drake recently had cause to complain on social media. Global music company Universal Music Group has reportedly asked music streaming services, including Spotify and Apple Music, that platforms have a fundamental legal and ethical responsibility to prevent the use of their services in ways that harm artists.
She wanna skirt in my whip. She only love me 'cause she know that and AI is taking over, but there's something else trending on social media.
Hey, I go take a low, just come my yard. Every morning she just kiss me like
That's a song, Alobo Jata, released by Alligator. It is a remix of the High Life song, Kwankweni Hieni. It's been trending this week because the new dance that started a whole challenge. I'm sure you can do your own Alobo Jata challenge wherever you are. But it's also the VGMAs this weekend. Will it be PSC Esther, Black Sheriff, or Stonebwoy? But I'm sure Alobo Jata will take it all.
I know say you bar. Say you go like Pumata. You want to jail me or what? What the way I do my
Let's get out of here. There's more when you log on to myjoyonline.com. I am Emefa Apawu. Game plan is up shortly, but Living Word with Pastor Mensa Otabil is on. Please do enjoy your weekend and stay safe.
Empany